All right, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. I hope everyone's trading great this week and overall just having a good week. We're going to be diving into another breakdown. This time it's going to be on ticker symbol DJT, Trump Media and Technology. I traded this yesterday morning, and I'm just going to break down to you guys my analysis pre-market, my top-down higher time frame to lower time frame analysis, and the reasons I took this trade and expected the stock to move the way it did. So diving right in, the first thing I identified was, is there catalysts on this stock? And we all know about the presidential debate. That's what I would consider the most recent fresh catalyst. So ever since then, this stock has been on my watch list almost probably every single day, just because there's been a lot more volatility. So that's not formulating my bias. That's just adding conviction that this stock is going to be moving. This stock is going to have large participants in it that have a lot more money than me. And yeah, so that's really the reason that I would note that down. I would say it's not that important for this exact trade, but it's just something I always write down and check. So from here, and the biggest variable, the biggest check in my favor is that this stock had a 4.07 relative volume pre-market. Okay, RVol stands for relative volume, and this just means the stock was trading 400% times more volume than average. That was the biggest thing for this particular playbook, as this was an open playbook, meaning that I'm trading it in the first 10 minutes or so. Unlike the last breakdown, that was more of a morning trade, something that I'm going to be trading for a little bit longer of a hold. This was what I would consider an open scalp, something that you're looking to take in the first 10-15 minutes, get in and out, and move on. So that was the most important check in my favor for this trade. I also wrote down small gap up. At the time when I checked this stock at first, it was gapping up around 2%, which was fine. I didn't really care too much to see that, or it didn't add any necessarily checks in my favor or any not in my favor. Just something to note. And I believed that that got erased closer to the open. And then also, which is super important, is the daily, the weekly, the monthly context in sync. Now, in this case, the monthly was red, as you can see. The weekly was not. Okay, the weekly was not, but that's okay. And then the daily was red as well, and the daily was under the 5, the 9, and the 20 moving average after being in a consistent downtrend that you can see here. Very consistent, pull back, anticipating lower lows, right? Now, I am normally quite fluid and biased, but for this particular trade, I was anticipating downside only just because it's off the open. It's kind of like it's either going to present or I'm just not going to trade it. So now that everyone knows the context, they know why I'm looking at the stock, RVol being the most important. And then after that, just ultimately building the top-down context from the monthly, the weekly, and the daily. We'll actually dive into the execution on a live video like we did last time, just showing you guys my thought process off the open and what I actually was anticipating for this trade. All right, so before we dive into the actual execution itself and the live video, I want to explain what an open and go playbook is, as you guys can see here. So we know what the setup is, I just explained it. Now we have the playbook, okay, the open and go. So for me, this is just going to be a break of the pre-market high or low, but that's obviously not everything. The reason being, we have the daily context. We know we're looking for a bearish play off the open in the first 10 or 15 minutes, okay? And why is that? Well, we're gapping very, very close to the previous day's low, okay? And this is a playbook I've traded countless times. More often than not, when we have this overall context, we have the daily aligned. We're near the previous day's low, preferably within the bottom 20% half, or the bottom 20% of the previous day's range. As you can see, we clearly are. That pre-market low, we found support there around 3 times now. And for me, all I'm looking for here is a break of this low to then come and target the previous day's low. Okay, so just a quick recap and a summary, very simply, we have the daily context. Okay, we're bearish from a top-down perspective. The daily's under the 9, the 20, and the 5 moving average, and we're gapping near the previous day's low in the bottom 20% of the previous day's range. So these are all the variables I need to be able to take this trade, which is the open and go playbook, okay? I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible for the people that are kind of new to this, but essentially these are all the checks in my favor that I need to take this trade and be confident in it off the open. All right, now for the actual live recording itself. Here we are, we're in Trump Media and Technology. This was yesterday, July 1st, 2024. And again, we'll just go over the actual context again. That blue line is the pre-market low. What is the context? The daily trend is bearish. We're under the 9, the 20, and the 5 moving average. We have our catalyst that we're just considering. Most importantly, the stock had a 4 RVOL pre-market, meaning that for me to trade something off the open, I want to see the highest relative volume possible, preferably 2 plus at minimum. And we're in the bottom 20% of the previous day's range. My target is that previous low of day we talked about, which you'll end up seeing in a minute, which is the red line. And yeah, I'm simply looking to take an aggressive scale in entry once we break the blue line. Okay, so I never enter all at once, but as we break that blue line, I'll begin to add in fifths. I'll take 1/5 in, 2/5 in, 3/5 in, and so on until I'm in a full position. And you guys will see me obviously do that here and then manage the position. I'll just walk through it bar by bar and we'll dive right into it. So this is about 40 seconds before the market opens, as you can see here, 9:29:20. We'll just wait a minute and let this play out. Okay, so here's the open itself. I'm simply waiting for that blue line to be broken, not blindly, because of the overall context that I explained from the daily setup to the playbook rules. Okay, so I start adding there. At this point, I'm probably 2 or 3 fifths into my position. Sorry. And at this point, I'm about all in. I think my average fill was 32.92 on this maybe. And my stop is immediately moved. I was putting it over the high of day at the point in time, and then as the trade goes in my favor, you guys know this, I move my stop loss. That's the first thing I'm thinking about. So I'm just waiting at this point. I have not moved my stop loss. I have my full unit of risk on the table. So if I had 500 on, I still have $500 of risk on. Okay. At this point, I'm beginning to think about moving my stop loss. Yep. And then about right here, I believe I began to start moving it because I'm obviously getting quite a good push in my favor. And again, this is not just we're buying or selling the pre-market low. The context, okay, the daily context, the high relative volume. We have a catalyst, even though it's not, I'd grade it like a 5 or a 6. It's nothing too crazy, and that's always important. We're not just buying pre-market low or selling pre-market low. We have the overall context. Yeah, so at this point here, I'm definitely thinking about putting my stop loss at break even. We're waiting. Yes, at this point I'm 100% break even. I've gotten 2 strong momentum pushes into my favor. I'm not willing to let this turn back around on me. So if I had 500 at risk, I now have nothing at risk. And again, guys, think about the context. We're not just selling the pre-market low. Okay, so don't go try that. You need context. You need high relative volume. You need some form of a catalyst for this particular trade, in my opinion. And it's all about context. It's not about, just doing one thing on the 2-minute chart. You need to build it out from all time frames. Okay, so this is obviously going in my favor really well. I actually think I'd maybe take off about 1/5 at this point. Somewhere around this 32 level, I do. Yeah, 100%. It was somewhere in this range, so just keep that in mind. I'm starting to take some profits off the table. Yep. And at this point, once we get to 31.59, I'll have 50% of my position off the table, as my rules for this trade are to take off 50% near and at the previous day's low, and then I try to let the last 50% run, basically trailing with 2-minute bars and kind of subjectively based off just my market intuition, you could say. Yep, so as we're getting close here, I'm beginning to be ready to take off, again, half of my position. And if we get that strong flush, which I actually think we do here, to about 31.30, 31.20, I take off like probably 60-70% of everything at that point, okay? So at that point, I had scaled out some. I don't think I got the full 50% out yet because it popped back super fast. But nothing about this trade has changed for me. Just because it popped like that, I'm not sitting there going, oh my gosh, it's turning on me. I'm not going to get my move. I'm just letting the rules play out. Yep. So at this exact push, I'm 50% out. Yep. So again, 50% was off at this current point, and I have my last 50% that I'm trailing into momentum, into a burst in volume, prior bar highs, things like that. There's multiple ways that I'll trail that last percentage, and some of it is kind of based off market experience and intuition, just seeing moves happen over time. There's no like objective rule for that, at least on this playbook. Let me fast forward this for you guys. Yep. So we really start to get a move here, and I'm thinking about taking off maybe like another 10%, somewhere in this range between 31.20 and 31.30, I believe, is where I take off another 10 or 20%. Fast forward it. Yep. Yes, so by this point, I had at least 65-70% of my position off the table. And like, for example, if we broke this prior bar's high with a close, I'm all out. So keep that in mind. Oh, another thing I want to note, for some reason my volume bars were not on this chart. Normally I trade with volume on this bottom half. I don't know what I did, but just keep that in mind. Yep. Okay, so at this point, as we're starting to find somewhat of a bottom, I think I probably... Oh, see, I'm flipping back to other names. As I told you guys in the last video, I watch quite a few stocks, so don't get confused when I do that. Yeah, so at this point, I have a good 70% of my position off, I believe. 60 to 70, somewhere in there. Oh no, actually I was fully out, my bad. I thought I had some on the table. So I guess I annotated there that I was fully out. And yeah, so that was my trade on Trump Media and technology and super fast scalp off the open. This was not something that I was looking to hold all day. As I told you guys, this is a playbook that happens in the first 10 to 15 minutes. And all it is again that daily context, a stock that has at least 2+ relative volume, RVOL, RVOL, and also being in the bottom or top 20% of the previous day's range, where we can target the previous day's high or the previous day's low. So those are the variables that make this playbook what it is. And I'll just go back so we can see, and this is the kind of move that you can catch whenever you execute this properly. Beautiful trade, and super predictable, super repeatable. You don't get these every day, but I'd say on average, you get them 100% every other day, and sometimes you'll have a whole week where you get one or two of these every single day. So that's really it for this trade. I'll go back to the bigger chart and just break down the rest for you guys. Alright, so here's the trade itself on this chart so you guys can see it. I ended up selling most of my position, as you could saw, where I annotated fully out, literally around here. Normally it's not that perfect, but this time it happened to be extremely perfect. Just simply following my rules, right? It's not like I'm predicting anything or I know anything. I'm literally just following the rules that I lay out for this trade, and I'm executing it with discipline. That simple. So the rest of the day, price just slowly grinds up and chops all day. I didn't even look at this thing one more time because, as you can see, it slowly gets a little bit liquid as the day goes on. But here, obviously there's quite a bit of volume. So yeah, that's going to be it for the DJT trade breakdown. I hope that you guys understand the actual context going from the daily setup itself down to applying the playbook, the open and go. And I hope this is going to provide some value to someone's trading out there and give someone something they can add to the arsenal. Good luck trading, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the week.